Welcome to episode 181 of the Half Point Per Podcast. I know Dalton numbers getting a little big, getting close to 200. My name is Evan Riggs, as always, joined by my co-host Dalton Willie. Dalton, there was carnage in Week 5. Guys getting hurt left and right. Guys who have been injured for a long time who are still not back. Randomly, Chuba Hubbard doesn't seem like he's going to play. So we'll start the show off in a minute with a very disgusting Week 5 conversation and then get into the actual meat of the show. But first, just, how are you doing? How are you handling all that is kind of befalling all of these good players that keep getting injured around fantasy football?
Well, I thought you were talking about the Chiefs-Ravens game, but that carnage is quite terrible. I think the additional secondary part of it, we'll talk about some of these guys later, is there are some stars who I think I would prefer if they were just injured at this point instead of having to worry about, do I start them or do I set them in my lineup with the way they're playing? But it's working out well for me. You're in the Dynasty League with me, and you know that this is a bad season for me, so I'm just buying all the injured players and sitting on them.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a thing that you started last year. You're keeping it going. My favorite thing that you do is you draft like 4 or 5 players a year, and then by week 5, you've traded most of the guys. It's like the second year in a row you've done that. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just like, it's funny. It's like, seems like you're resetting the cycle. But then, you add the Rashee Rice, the Chris Gott, like Lat McConkey, if he ever catches a pass again, like, you're getting there.
Yeah, well, we have Joe Burrow now because the Anthony Richardson dream is just that. A dream.
Geno Smith might not be the long-term answer for your quarterback. So good choice. Okay. Like I said, just a lot of disgusting decisions that people are going to have to make in week 5. We're going to help you out a little bit at the running back spot. Obviously, if you're watching, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll answer them as always. After we do that, we're going to get into some quarter season takeaways. I mean, the NFL really screws us here by going with a 17-game schedule because there's no perfect quarter of the season, but we're calling it right now through 4 weeks, just calling out some of our biggest takeaways and just kind of talking about maybe what they mean going forward. But first, at running back, I mean, isn't it just the Trey Benson owners in dynasty leagues luck that James Conner, I don't mean this how it sounds, but for them, James Conner finally goes down. Yes, Trey Benson, he gets his chance. He plays a pretty good defense. It's kind of a okay game, and now he's hurt. He's on IR for a month. Michael Carter might start. Remember him?
Exists.
Chuba Hubbard dealing with the calf. Rico Dowdle, maybe a thing. The Chiefs backfield has a lot of answers. Don't know if any of them are good. Bucky Irving dealing with injuries. So I thought it would be productive for us just to rank these guys by order of most want to start versus least want to start. And for the Chiefs and the Cardinals, just pick your favorite back out of that backfield. We don't need to rank DeMarcado and Michael Carter or Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco or Brashard Smith. With that said, Dalton, is there anyone who stands above the rest just for this week as a clear-cut top guy you'd want to start out of this group?
Among all of them or just Arizona?
Among all of them.
I think the answer for me is Rico Dowdle, which is it is disgusting.
Yeah.
But they have a pretty committed run game and a pretty good offensive line for the run game, and he looks to be next man up. I think DeMarcado versus Michael Carter debate is pretty interesting in the sense that Matt Waldman had a good point where a lot of people think Michael Carter just fits the starter role, but he's this guy's been playing special teams. You don't want to reward DeMarcado with that. And we really don't know what that coaching staff is thinking. Kansas City, I want nothing to do with it except I'll probably roster Brashard Smith wherever possible and pray. And then Rachaad White, I enjoy. I think you and I discussed this over DMs, but I actually think there's a chance that we see Sean Tucker in the starter role and Rachaad White's role stays pretty similar.
Oh, come on now.
We've seen it before.
Rachaad White, excuse me, I was thinking Brashard Smith. Rachaad White of backs with 15 or more carries. Heard this from Nate Tice. So it's a small, like that's a small sample. It's only 4 weeks. He's first in success rate in the entire NFL. Like that's like, and like I told you this. I don't have any definitive big picture Rachaad White takeaways yet. We'll see what happens, whether it's 1 week or if Bucky Irving, God forbid, ends up going on IR. Don't know exactly what's going to happen with the foot deal. We'll see what Rachaad White looks like in an expanded role, I think. But I did think it was interesting, that Nate talked a lot about how White has looked a lot better to him as a runner this year. Just things have slowed down for him more. He's being a lot more patient. All of the advanced stats, because 2023 when he was RB15 or whatever, it was pure volume.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that he's not getting that volume now. He's not been a guy that you're thinking about starting, but he's been good, like really good in the volume he's getting. Now, can that sustain with a bigger role? Remains to be seen. But I do personally think he'll probably get first shot. I think Sean Tucker will be involved and get touches because there's usually always a second guy. But right now, I think I'd have White number 1. With that Giants pass rush, I would not be surprised if Baker has to dump it down to him quite a bit this week in that matchup. Rico Dowdle.
It's Seahawks this week.
Oh, it's Seahawks. Who's playing the Giants? I swear I thought they were playing the Giants.
Let me look at their schedule. The Giants.
The Saints.
Oh, that's going to be a bloodbath.
Well, Kamara is going to get a million catches this week. Anyway, Seahawks also good D-line. So the point still kind of stands. Sucks that I apparently looked like a week ahead or I don't know. But anyway, I'd still have White number 1, Dowdle number 2. I think it's close between those two. Those are the clear top 2. I'm with you. I want nothing to do with starting a Chief right now. You could guess right, but that's what it's going to be.
Well, I know what they're doing out there. You're saying, well, Pacheco had a touchdown last week.
Yeah.
You got to watch.
And Kareem Hunt had one the week before. Brashard Smith, we'll talk about this later. Drumbeat is getting loud that he's going to continue to get a bigger role. So don't know what to expect. I would say Michael Carter would probably be my pick for number 3. But my bigger takeaway just in this is I don't want to start a Cardinal running back this week. I would not be surprised. DeMarco's role pretty much stayed the same when it was James Conner to then when it was Benson Conner or Benson DeMarco, just mostly passing game stuff. But he scored a touchdown, so he had a big fantasy game. It's kind of one of those deals where Carter's probably going to get more snaps based on what we're hearing right now. Like Cardinals beat writer was very quick to say like, hey, this is going to be the guy. Michael Carter literally said he's going from practice squad guy to starting. So like all indications are he's going to start. Will he score more points? I don't know. And that rushing attack is not the same this year. And it's not just the fact there's no James Conner. Again, Nate Tice, I was listening to his podcast with Harmon this morning, made a point that I was not aware of. I was not aware that the guy who was in charge of the Cardinals rushing attack essentially last year is now running the Cowboys show. So that could explain some things on both sides. And he did not like the look of the Cardinals rushing attack so far. So I'm not too interested in investing, even as much as like I thought Michael Carter was a good player back in the day. So I would love to be able to be like, yeah, Michael Carter always knew it was coming, just had to get his chance, which it's always been weird to me that he's just never been able to find a 53-man roster role since he left the Jets. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, the last thing, like, if you're just box score watching, the game looked pretty close last week against the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. But if you watch the game, there's like 3.5 quarters where that Cardinals offense is abysmal.
Did nothing, yeah.
And I don't really want any shares in that offense except for Trey McBride going forward. Yeah. Like Kyler Murray looks off. Michael Floyd is. I mean, if you're in deep league, I guess there's something there.
Hold on, Michael Floyd. Are you talking about Michael Wilson?
Yeah, Michael Wilson.
Like we're going with the real throwback.
Yeah, him and Larry Fitz really weren't tearing things up last week. I don't know what was going on.
I'm with you. I mean, Marv did eventually catch a touchdown. Thank God. Poor guy seemed so relieved to finally just catch the ball.
I think he started crying.
I mean, he might have. So, okay, that is your disgusting running back talk of the week. We'll answer any further start-sit decisions that you may have, and I know there's probably a lot of them if they come in chat. But Dalton, without further ado, let's get into the actual topic of the show, which is just, talking about some big takeaways that we have through 4 weeks of the fantasy season. Obviously, we've talked a lot about buying low, selling high. We've talked about what do we believe, what do we not believe after the first couple of weeks. I talked about it specifically after week 1. Now we have a month of a sample size to where there's a lot that can change. If you go look at the top 12 at each position from the first 4 weeks last year, you'll find guys that were not even close to there at the end of the season. But we do at least know more at this point, obviously. We have enough data where we could give a little bit more of a definitive opinion. Whether it's right or wrong, we'll see. But I think we can come to more definitive opinions now than we've been able to at any point yet this season. We'll call this the Roma Dunze memorial list. I brought 5, you brought 4, so he's getting cut off of mine. But, Roma Dunze, breakout wide receiver of the season, this year's JSN, since people love that line of thinking in fantasy football so much. He and Caleb Williams have that chemistry. He's being treated like a 1, and he's got the talent of a 1. It's just all lining up for him.
Anybody who listened to our preseason pods should have been heavily invested in him. I think he was wide receiver 36 at the close, and we had him in the top 30, and we were low on him by a pretty large margin so far.
I had him 23, and I think you were just a little bit lower.
And he's currently wide receiver 3.
And I'm not sure if he's going to finish 3, but I think he's going to finish in the top 12. That would be my guess. Okay, your first takeaway, Dalton.
I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to Baker Mayfield and what he's done this season so far, especially because you and I are pretty often to point out like Mahomes has played without his full roster for like several seasons. And Baker Mayfield is doing the same thing. So if you just think about his complementary players, it's Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Bucky Irving. Coming into the 5th game of the season, that trio or quadrio will not have played together at all and won't for the foreseeable future. In Godwin's first game back, he has 10 targets and 3 catches. Not a good game. The last 2 weeks, we've seen Emeka Egbuka's snap percentage go down because of injury. And then without all of that, he also doesn't have probably the second best left tackle in all of football in Tristan Wirfs. Despite this, Baker Mayfield is currently the QB 8 in fantasy, and he hasn't really had the easiest of schedules. So they go out and they play the Falcons, the Texans, the Jets, and the Eagles. Excluding the Jets, who I think their defense is a little suspect. Those have been 3 very good defenses throughout the season. Up next, he gets the Seahawks and then the 49ers and then the Lions. But then October 26th, he gets the Saints. And then he gets the Saints twice coming up to interschedule. So to do all that and to still be the QB 8 in points per game and to have really like a really good baseline in scoring. So his lowest points is 17.7. I think it just shows that like Baker Mayfield has kind of established himself as like a legitimate every week starter in fantasy football and borderlines in that top 5, especially with where we're at with this season with some of the injuries to other players. So he's been incredibly consistent. And he's also doing it with his offense at half capacity at best. So it's just been a fun storyline to watch. And he has been just really fun to watch play. Obviously, against the Eagles, he has that back-breaking interception. But outside of that, he is really dealing, and he's using that rushing ability we talked about in the preseason if it was repeatable. And a lot of that looks like it's going to stick with him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Mahomes rushing, where you wonder as the team gets healthier, will the rushing maybe go away a little bit, which he probably would appreciate if it did. I mean, yeah, I think the biggest thing going forward, I agree with you that Baker has been great and had just admirable performances so far. Because even like Emeka Egbuka, who has put up these huge numbers, I don't really know what to think. I mean, I think he's good, but if you look at a lot of the average separation score and just all like man-to-man stuff, he does not grade out well at all in a lot of that stuff. And Also, I saw someone where it's like you take away his 77-yard touchdown, which, I don't always love that line of thinking because, yes, the guy did score that touchdown, but also it was a single coverage. The guy undercut it. It wasn't something that special that he did. Just kind of a broken play, good throw by Baker, good play by him to be in the right spot. Those numbers are significantly worse. So with a rookie receiver as his go-to guy who maybe Baker is propping up to be better than he's been. And I hope Baker keeps playing as well as he is, because we're going to have three guys that we really care about in fantasy, because I think Chris Godwin's going to get better. It was his first week back. It wasn't good. That's to be expected. He's rusty, physically, and just not up to speed mentally with the game. Mike Evans, maybe back next week, maybe the week after that. So maybe in 3 weeks, we start to get a picture of that hierarchy in the receiver room. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, because we need as many startable receivers as possible, that we can start all three of these guys in a couple weeks.
Yeah. And then obviously you have Bucky filtering into that. A few other things with the Bucks. Just this isn't fantasy related, but this is his third offensive coordinator in 3 seasons, and he's been good in all of them. Yeah. They're also down 2 interior offensive linemen, and he is still managing to play, especially after playing that Eagles front. I think that game was fluky in the final score. I don't think they played as well as the final score really shows.
No, well, the Eagles going 0 for 8 on pass attempts in the second half will kind of do that.
Yeah, looking at you, AJ Brown. But yeah, just an incredibly exciting offense, and one of the better, one of the more fun teams. I have fun actually going back and watching because they're creative, and Baker really has that flair, and he just looks like he's really, because he went as wide receiver or as QB 11 in redraft, and he's already outperformed that value. And I think he could have better weeks ahead of him. He hasn't had any blow up. He's just been consistent.
Yeah, and they've had a lot of close games, so that they've also been fun to watch for that reason. You mentioned AJ Brown. That's where I'm going next. And, AJ Brown did his usual cryptic tweet this week. Goes back to the Denny Carter receiver tweet. AJ Brown's always good for one of those every month, it seems. The spiral for AJ Brown right now is as much his fault as the play calling. That's my takeaway through the first month of the season. And to be clear, this is going to be greatly aided by Matt Harmon, because it's very tough, especially when we're watching these games on the broadcast angle, not the all 22. It's tough for us to know, okay, does this guy still look the same? Does he still have it? We just see he's not getting the ball. It's been rough for AJ Brown just in isolation this year. And this dude is wide receiver 50. Wide receiver 50. By the way, T. Higgins, a couple spots below him, kind of broke my heart a little bit. Shout out Jake Browning. He has 2 games, AJ Brown, with fewer than 2 points. This is a guy who's been arguably the best receiver in the NFL for the last 4 years. Week 3, he had 19.9 points. Took until the second half for him to have any involvement, and then he had a lot of involvement. And, he brought him back to the game, so he did produce in that. And I do kind of wonder what some of his charting would look like if Harmon charted that game. But I don't know. The thing with the Eagles, and all of us, including me, are guilty of this to some extent. The Eagles just don't want to pass unless they have to. I think that's somewhat true. But I also think they probably would prefer to win these games by 3 scores instead of 1 score. They don't want to be the 2024 Chiefs squeaking out every game by 3 points at the very end. And these teams are entering these games against the Eagles now and saying, we're going to stack the box. We're going to take away Saquon Barkley, and we're going to see what you got. And as a result, Saquon's averaging 3.1 yards per carry this season. That's a career low if you take away the year he played 2 games and got hurt immediately. He was averaging 1.9 yards per carry in the 6 quarters he played that year. He was 5.8 yards per carry last year. And to my eye, he looks like the exact same guy as he did last year. The Eagles have the lowest drop back percentage in the NFL on first down this year. On those first down runs, among 42 qualifying running backs, Saquon Barkley is 40th with 2.6 yards per carry, 34th with a 50% stacked box rate, 28th with a 30% success rate, and 39th with a 32% rate that he's failed to gain yards, basically a 32% stuff rate. You would think AJ Brown would be able to capitalize when teams are playing them this way, even with low volume. Because that, frankly, like AJ Brown's career has been low volume, but extremely efficient with a great running game as part of the offense. But his reception perception, weeks 1 and weeks 4, first of all, he's lined up on the line 92% of the time. That is insane. There's no way that will continue, but that is insane through 2 games. That, like, just basically a pure X receiver, and specifically a backside X receiver. And what I mean by that is their offensive coordinator pretty much word for word said this. Did you see that quote going around, Dalton?
Mm-mm.
Basically said, like, about AJ not getting the ball. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but was like, yeah, like, he's kind of the backside read, and if the play gets back to him, great. But like, if not, like, basically was like, it is what it is. That to me sounds like a guy who, I mentioned this after the first couple weeks. His week 1 reception perception was so bad, like he has to be hurt. I think he's got to be hurt. He's either hurt or he's washed. And he's 28, so I highly, highly doubt he's washed. I feel like he's out there being a decoy because he's such a big name, such a big weapon, and he's being treated as such by his team. Like, he has not been an emphasis at all. And just like, again, in isolation, 45.8 success rate versus man coverage. Harmon prefaced that with saying that's about as bad as it gets for a starting receiver in the NFL. That's AJ Brown through 2 weeks. 58.8% against zone coverage. Last year, the lowest charted among any NFL receiver was 70%. So think about that. He is demonstrably worse. It's only 2 games, but he is way worse through 2 games against zone coverage than the worst guy in the NFL last year. I can't say when it's going to get better. I'm sure at some point it will. I'm sure he will finish much higher than wide receiver 50. But I think until we see it improve just in isolation for him, you just have to adjust the expectations for this guy going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I talked a little bit about this last week. Excluding the second half against the Rams, the Eagles have the worst pass rate over expectation in the NFL. In addition to that, like, this team has really, and I mean really, just decided they don't want to throw the ball. Devontae Smith is sitting at wide receiver 50. AJ Brown is sitting at wide receiver 54 or 53. And that's with a 16-point blow-up game. And I mean, he certainly could be injured, but I don't know how to parse what he did against the Rams in that second half. Like, because that was vintage AJ Brown. He literally threw a corner to the ground and gained 15 more yards on the play.
He was dealing with a hamstring injury in camp, and that's like the only thing that makes sense to me, is that he just is not right. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Well, him being the backside read makes absolutely no sense whatsoever for this offense.
It doesn't, but then it does based on like what the reception perception numbers say, and like all of these in breaking routes and out breaking routes and posts where he's always so good. Harmon's like, he looks so slow out of all of those breaks.
Well, what I don't know, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I mean, is it just an effort thing too? Like,
and that's possible.
Is he really just like, if this team doesn't want to use me, he's like, I know I'm the last read. I know I have a quarterback who's very rarely going to get to the last read, especially with an offensive line and an offense as good as theirs. He's never going to get back to that read. So like, why go out there and bother doing anything? And then the second half against the Rams, he's like, okay, now I turn it up. But if that's the case, like, I mean, if I asked you, are you starting the wide receiver 53 this week, you would say no in almost all accounts for that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a point where the conversation is, when do you not start AJ Brown? And it's not like the Eagles play any more tougher games going forward. Like, they've gotten through some of the worst part of their schedule, which were us and the Bucks.
Well, I will say this week, who do they have this week? They do have a tough game this week. The Broncos.
Yeah.
I mean, Broncos defense pretty good.
Yeah, but I just feel like the Eagles defense is gonna wash.
Oh yeah, the Eagles will put up, like, if you're thinking about, AJ Brown specifically, and if he just gets, the Pat Surtain treatment, like, what's gonna happen?
That will tell us a lot. If Pat Surtain doesn't shadow AJ Brown this game, we're gonna know there's something wrong or he is washed. But it's just, this is one of those situations, and I have one of these on my list we'll talk about later too, where it's really hard because if the team was losing, we would be like, well, things are going to get fixed. The coach will get fired. They're going to change the offensive scheme. But they're winning games. They're not winning them dominantly right now, but they're winning them well enough that I think they feel comfortable with what they're doing. And like, we don't have, it's not like AJ Brown is running 10 yards downfield wide open and Jalen Hurts is throwing a check down. It's well, AJ Brown is blanketed and he's either not trying, he's not healthy, or he sucks now.
And see, that's what's more concerning to me. Like, if he just wasn't putting up numbers, but you got the like reception perception and like the average separation score and the open, if like he was killing it in all of that stuff, it'd be like, okay, he'll be fine. I'm sure it'll get better, but just the fact that we are where we are right now, I am a lot more nervous about AJ Brown and after a month than I ever would have thought a month ago.
Yeah, and this is squeaky wheel week. Like, this is the time where this would be one of my last shots to really feel confident starting him. Like, he's told the team how he feels, and now it's their time to actually give him the ball. And if he doesn't get the ball, then something is very wrong.
If you somehow have a decent record with AJ Brown on your team, which I get difficult, but if you do, like, I would not be opposed to seeing if I could take that squeaky wheel narrative and getting Rashee Rice a couple weeks away from returning and then something else. You know what I mean? Like, I would not be opposed, because then it's like, okay, I wanted to bench AJ Brown. Now I just don't have that spot for 2 weeks. And then I get Rashee Rice, who I personally feel a lot better about. Will he be better than AJ Brown? We'll see. I'm a lot more confident he's going to be wide receiver 15 than I am AJ Brown's going to be at this point, though.
Yeah, AJ Brown is early season contender for roster clogger, which is a wild thing to say for a second round pick.
Yeah. Okay, your second one, Dalton.
We're hitting on the good first, and it's another quarterback, but I really want to talk about Drake May. I tried to get him into my top 12 in the preseason rankings and didn't quite get there. And a lot of my discomfort was with the Patriots offense, which I actually still have discomfort with. But Drake May has been insane to start the season. So he's he's quarterback 4. He's averaging 21.4 points per game. He's the only quarterback in the top 5 who's done that and doesn't have 100 rushing yards. So he's doing this all on the ground, and he's doing this all with passing touchdown and passing. And he's also doing it behind like a mediocre offensive line and bottom like third talent around him. Like Hunter Henry is surprisingly good. And he's been such a successful quarterback that he's been a really charm to watch. The Patriots right now rank 13th in the NFL in offensive EPA, which if you told a Patriots fan that coming into the season, they'd be ecstatic. In addition to that, like Josh McDaniels looks like he's having a blast. So this was a fun stat.
I love this look for you, pro Josh McDaniels.
Pro Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator, anti Josh McDaniels as a head coach. I pulled this stat from The Athletic this morning when they were talking about exciting offenses. But through 4 weeks, in every game, the Patriots have come out with at least 2 new offensive sets they haven't used before, which says a lot of things about how much Josh McDaniels trusts Drake May to learn a new offensive scheme, and also how much stuff they have in their bag that they're kind of pulling out week by week, and they're getting new stuff added to this scheme. And then secondly, and this was a really great point I didn't think about, but Robert May has pointed out, like Drake May is almost the perfect candidate for a Josh McDaniels offense. So he ran those Cam Newton years where it was like a power heavy under center offense. And obviously he ran all those years with Tom Brady. And Drake May can run that power stuff that he ran with Cam Newton. And so far it looks like he's picked up the offense enough that he understands how to run an effective Josh McDaniels offense, which we know historically has been hard to learn. And then the last part of this is he's doing all this and he still has, he's fifth in the NFL in quarterback turnovers. Like he still lost 12 points in fantasy to turnovers. He has a couple of fumbles and a couple of interceptions. And you just throw those 12 points in there, and all of a sudden he's at 96 and he's QB2. Now,
if you just take away all of his mistakes, he's great.
No, but we cleaned some of that up.
I know what you're saying.
And it's just like, this is a really fun offense. He's a guy, dynasty wise, I would be looking to get after if it's like a potential for you to get him. And when this offense adds some weapons, I'm excited to see if the Kyle Williams like project works out. He hasn't really seen the field. Yeah. And we know that McDaniels and Vrabel are two coaches who are pretty like earn your way in when it comes to their rookies. Maybe Afton Chisholm, a little Chisler accent. I don't know. But this entire offense has some explosive weapons. Obviously, I haven't even mentioned Travion Henderson, who's still like sitting around a 33% snap share per game.
Yeah.
And if all of these things start to come together as the season unfolds and these rookies get their grounding, like this could be a really exciting player. And if he keeps his pace up and finishes in the top 6, he's going to be the fantasy bargain at quarterback for the season.
Yeah, I mean, if the rookies, specifically Kyle Williams and Travion Henderson, if they find their footing and their roles look a lot different in 2 months than they do right now, then that's when this offense really starts to kind of have some teeth to it. We're going to see it, though. Sunday Night Football, I'm excited to watch them against the Bills to see what they look like. They're probably going to have to score points to hang in that game, so that'll be a litmus test for Drake May and this offense. And, Stephon Diggs finally looked like he has a pulse. After a really slow start, looked a lot better in week 4. Hopefully we'll see more out of him going forward, because that would obviously be a nice development for Drake May in that passing game.
Well, just a fun fact for this Bills-Patriots Sunday night game. The Patriots have as many wins as every opponent the Bills have faced so far. The Bills' opponents' combined record is 2-14.
I saw someone tweet the reverse standings for the lottery odds. Someone was like, is that the Bills' schedule? So, yes, that's who the Bills have played this year.
Yeah, and this is a Bills defense that has actually been really bad on the ground. So if there's ever a time for Drake May to break that 100-yard rushing with those top 5 quarterbacks, I think it would be Sunday night.
Hey, the Saints moved the ball on them pretty well over the weekend. Obviously, the NFL is maybe the most week-to-week sport that we have. So it doesn't mean it's going to happen this week, but the Bills defense can at least be had for sure. Okay. I'll skip around here so I'm not doing all negative at the beginning. Let's talk about Javonte Williams a little bit, because
I thought we were done with disgusting running backs.
Well, it's funny you say that. I think we both opted out of even talking about the Dallas backfield for that exact reason. We knew probably somebody was going to have value in this backfield. I think my assumption was the starting running back was not yet on the team, so I didn't want to give it a ton of attention because I was just frankly disgusted with what I saw out of Javonte Williams last year. He was in a good situation last year. Why would this good situation be any different? So we didn't give it the time of day that we probably should have. And it turns out, I'm not going to say he's awesome, but for fantasy, he's awesome. And I think for real life purposes, he's good, pretty good, which is a lot better than last year. And, I'm going to keep referencing Nate Tice in this one too, because they talked about that Denver run game compared to the Dallas run game, talking about the Cardinals guy. The Broncos run game, a lot of duo between the tackles, get your guy kind of matched up with the D linemen and linebackers. The Cowboys, a lot more like counters, get your guys to the second level, which I thought was interesting because one of the notes I had written down before that was he's breaking tackles again, dragging guys, or he had a play in the Bears game where he just threw a guy off of him out of bounds. And it's okay, we haven't seen that for a couple of years. Partially, it could be because he's just in a better place physically this year than last year. Good chance part of it is also because he's just getting matched up more against guys in the secondary than the bigger guys. And it's not to say either one is necessarily better or worse, but for him, this clearly feels like a better scheme fit. And what the Cowboys have kind of turned into this year, which we very well thought could be the case after they traded Micah Parsons, was this year's Bengals. Put up a ton of points, give up a ton of points. So then you have to keep putting up a ton of points. And, they're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they are sure entertaining. So Jerry Jones may have actually won the Micah Parsons trade in his own way. I mean, this offense.
I think we saw the outcome of that trade. They tied.
Yeah, they tied. That's right. This offense is good. I don't see anybody really challenging Javonte Williams right now. I think Jaden Blue is probably the biggest potential challenge. He's going to be active for the first time, I think, next week. And I don't know this. I don't have numbers to back this up. My guess, though, is that when a rookie running back is not active for the first month of the season, it's just like a healthy scratch. That probably doesn't bode well for rookie year production. Career-wise, I don't know. I would be surprised if Jaden Blue is like taking over this backfield from a top, I think he's RB6 right now, top 10 fantasy running back. Because Javonte Williams has just been good. And the Bears game, he was at 61% of the snaps. That's because they got killed. Other games, he's been up around 80% of the snaps. So, like, if you're telling me I can get a good running back at, let's just say, 70% of the snaps, give Jaden Blue and Miles Sanders when he's healthy, and, Phil Maffa if he ever sees the field, give those guys the other 30. Like, that guy is going to be a top 15 running back the rest of the season. He's not going to be a guy that we look up and, oh, he's RB 35. Like, that start was cute. Like, I think this is legitimate and it's going to last.
Yeah, and I just pulled it up because I was curious. His fantasy data, he's 16th in running backs in forced missed tackles, which this was kind of what we were promised with Javonte Williams before the leg injury.
That's what he was at North Carolina, and then his rookie year with Denver.
Yeah. He's obviously not doing it at the elite rate we expected, and that's to be expected with the leg injury. But he's playing incredibly well. He's actually fun to watch. The Dallas offense somehow is still moving it without CeeDee Lamb, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
George Pickens silently is wide receiver 4.
Yeah, because he had like 30 points the other night. Yeah.
But he's just a really fun player. He's one of the few consistent, like, close enough to workhorse that he's a start it and forget it running back and has elevated himself into that RB1 conversation. And there's just no reason not to look forward and go with him. But more importantly, I feel so bad for Dak Prescott because I am getting like Tony Romo mid to late career vibes all over again.
Yeah.
Where it's like, man, this guy's actually pretty good, but everything they're putting around him on this team is just not enough to get them over that hurdle to win a playoff game even.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like, they put up 40 points on a really good Packers defense and they still don't come away with the win. Like, that is just miserable. But yeah, Javonte Williams has sneakily been a really good player, and I think most of the community has refused to acknowledge it because I think most of the community took our stance early in the season, which was like, oh, we just don't want to touch that with a 9-foot pole.
Yeah, I mean, he has the 6th lowest stuff rate, 8th in yards after contact per rushing attempt. Like, the underlying stats, the eye test, whatever you want to use, he's been pretty good this year. Okay, your third.
We did the good. Now we're getting to the bad. And we have to talk about it because it's occurring and it's very important to fantasy. But what's going on with Cincinnati Bengals, and more importantly, what's going on with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Yeah. So you look at Jamar Chase, he's wide receiver 25 right now. If you take away week 2, he hasn't scored more than 4 points in a game. Week 2, he has 22.5 points in the Jake Browning start, and people probably thought that meant he would continue to do well with Jake Browning. You add in that, you look at some advanced metrics from Fantasy Points and Data. He's right now, he's 23rd in wide receiver. He's 23rd in yards per route run and 26th in average depth of target. So he's not the deep threat we expected. He's not getting us like good points on his targets. And that entire Bengals offense is just looking anemic. I mean, we have what the Vikings did to them last week, but even in his second start, Jake Browning didn't look any better. And you go down this list and, even with Jake Browning, if you told me, well, Jamar Chase isn't playing well, I'd say, well, then surely T. Higgins is. And that would also be a lie because he's at 56th in wide receivers. He's He has a 3-game, an 11-point game, a 1-point game, and a 3-point game, and it doesn't look any better for him.
He's literally made one play. Well, 2 plays this year. He caught one like 25-yard catch the other night over Riley Moss, and then he had like a 40-yard touchdown in week 2. Those are the only 2 plays he's made this year.
Yeah. And among starting duo wide receivers, this is from Fantasy Points and Data, the Bengals rank 30th in average separation. Now, I'm sure T. Higgins is pulling it down a little bit, but you expect Ja'Marr Chase to be getting like elite top end wide receiver 1 separation. You dig into that. The other teams below them are
question about that stat. I'm just curious. I don't know. Is that on targets or is that just measure every route?
That's just the tracking data. So again, like the tracking data is a little weird. But the 2 teams below it are the Panthers and the New England Patriots, which you wouldn't expect those wide receiver cores to really be separating.
I'm just curious because like the play that runs through my head is I think it was the first quarter of the game the other night in Denver where Browning takes a check down and you see Ja'Marr Chase like sprinting on a post route with about 5 yards between him and the defender. It's like, dude, why is that not where you're looking?
Well, and that's the last part. Like the Jake Browning of this year is not the Jake Browning of 2023, where he was viable as a quarterback starter and as a fantasy crutch for both Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. And the question I really have is like, I don't know if this is going to get better, but I really don't know what you're going to do. I can see with where the draft capital was justifying benching T. Higgins for a couple of weeks, but Ja'Marr Chase was in some drafts, like the first player off the board.
Yeah, number 1 overall.
So it's just super hard. And I'm sure he'll have a few blow-up games, but his floor is like 2 points. So like quarter season check-in is every Bengal I don't want to have anything to do with, all the way down to Chase Brown, Noah Fant, rest in peace, Drew Sample. Mike Gesicki was a player I was kind of excited about because he looked like something last year, and none of them have been anything worth close to touching your fantasy lineup on a weekly basis.
This is clearly just a curse until they let my boy Jermaine Burton be active on game day and put him out there. I don't care if he's late to practice this week, coach. Just give him a chance.
Maybe it's better he's not practicing with the team at this point.
Yeah, that's right. It's his own decision. He realizes how bad practice is.
Big brain.
Do you have because I do, if you don't, I have it in front of me. Do you have Ja'Marr Chase's weekly finishes at receiver in 9 games with Jake Browning at quarterback?
I don't, but I want to hear this.
So I'm assuming this is PPR because it's from Field Yates and ESPN. I think default is PPR. In reverse order here, I don't know which one is more recent. 61st, 41st, 3rd, 57th, 54th, 57th. Oh, sorry. It was 57th, 54th, 34th, 57th, 6th, 33rd, 40.
That's not good.
There are 2 games that you're happy you started him. There's 1 game where he's 34, and there's 2 where he's 34 and 33, where it's like, okay. And the other half are he completely busts, and you're mad that you started him because he only scored you 3 points. And I'm with you. I don't know what you do. The only 2 rays of hope I can provide are, number 1, getting tossed in there against the Vikings and the Broncos is a pretty tough first 2 games for a backup quarterback behind a bad offensive line to have to come into. They play the Browns one more time. Outside of that, I don't think they're going to play a defense as good as what they've played so far this season. And also the Bengals just always start slowly. Maybe this is just that multiplied by the backup quarterback effect, and we can get things back on track a little bit. But I mean, you mentioned like the average separation score. Part of that might be every time, specifically T. Higgins, but even Chase too. Every time they seem to be getting targets in the Broncos game I was watching, it was just running a go route on the sideline. It's like, can we not do something a little more creative, Zach Taylor, than just send your guys on a go route and tell them to go win the ball? Because guess what? They still have to be an accurate ball from your quarterback to give him a chance. And Jake Browning has a lot that just go 5 yards out of bounds when he should be giving them a chance.
Well, that's kind of the problem. And we saw this in Cleveland, obviously a little different for a couple of years. But this Bengals offense was made for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow doesn't like play action. He doesn't like motion. He is good enough to, like, mind you, to take what the defense is giving him and know what his reads need to be. And that's not good for a backup quarterback.
And they changed that a little. Like, they did more of that stuff when Browning had to play a lot of games a couple years ago when Burrow had the wrist injury.
Yeah. And hopefully, like, that adjustment is coming. The hardest part for this is, like, the timeline for Joe Burrow was 3 months. If they keep losing games, that timeline is going to be next year.
And it was at least 3 months.
Yeah.
At least 3 months, which it was mid-September. So you're thinking, and then he had surgery maybe a week after that. So you're thinking, okay, maybe by the new year, like by the very end of the season, he's back. What's the Bengals record at that point? Because if they have no chance at the playoffs, they're not going to bring him back. And at the earliest, that's probably your fantasy championship. If we stick to that timeline, like,
I'll end with a little hope. If you have Jamar Chase and you're somehow looking at a playoff run, they end the season with the Panthers and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And so those could be the 2 games he actually plays well, Jake Browning, if it's still Jake Browning, and if Joe Burrow is magically back and the Bengals are limping into the playoffs, then you have a shot. But otherwise, like, it's a pretty grim outlook rest of season for this supporting cast in Cincinnati, which brings me so much joy to report you.
Can we just send Jamar Chase on like a couple drag routes? Maybe a like a stick, like a 5-yard stick. Like, can we do a couple of those? Let him just get some yak to put up some points.
Can we do a little flanker mountain?
Okay, that's a deep cut that not that many people listening to this will understand. Maybe like 2 of them. Next up, I'm putting myself in the ultimate, this is how you look dumb as someone who talks about fantasy football. I'm putting myself out there in this position. I mean, we have a clip that we used to play of Dalton 3 years ago talking about Derrick Henry being done. I'm not saying Derrick Henry is done. I'm not even saying what's happening now is his fault, but it might be time to fade Derrick Henry a little bit. Right now, he's 31st in explosive play plus success rate, which, think about what he did in the Bills game. How many long runs he had in that game. He basically hasn't had one since then. That's below league average among running backs with 20 touches. That 5.8 yards per carry he's averaging just does not capture that part of it. They're not getting a lot of positive down and distance opportunities in the run game. Baltimore's not, which is, I think, impacting the pass game. I mean, the Chiefs had them in 3rd and long a lot the other day for that exact reason. He has 3 fumbles on 43 touches this year. If you had to ballpark it, if I told you he had 3 fumbles on his previous blank amount of touches, what is the number that you would guess?
Well, I know it's insane. It goes back like 8 seasons to get.
It's not that far, but it is a big number.
How big?
652 touches. He had 3 fumbles in his previous 652 touches. It's funny. The O-line, they were part of my reason for concern for Derrick Henry last year. If you recall, we had the debate, and that, like, the thing about Derrick Henry, great running back, but he is not an Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, who's even struggling with an offensive line play right now and some box stacking. But he's not those guys in that he's going to make you miss in the backfield and, Josh Jacobs and get 3 yards when it should have been -1. He's got to get ahead of steam. And that's when he really is King Henry, when he gets that head of steam. Right now, that offensive line, 29th in pressure rate, aided by the Chiefs pressuring Lamar on 15 of 27 dropbacks the other day. 25th in run stuff rate. Right now, if you take away that Bills game, 31 carries for 115 yards. He's averaging 1 yard before contact right now. Like, that's just not, for Derrick Henry, that's not the formula. That's not how he's going to be most successful. And the other thing that's a problem that, it's been a problem the last couple years, and especially last year in Baltimore, and then again this year, it just hasn't mattered because he's been so good. He does not play a large snap share anymore. He's pretty close to a 50-50 snap share split. It just doesn't matter because he still usually gets his touches. But 2-minute drill into the first half, he doesn't even have his helmet on. He's over there holding his helmet because that's just his hill time. And when the rushing game is not as efficient, when he's not breaking off big runs as regularly, you kind of need him out there for some of those. And I'm not saying to bench him, and I'm not saying he'll never get back on track, but right now he's more of a top 12 to 15 running back, especially with Lamar being injured, as opposed to the no doubter top 3 to 5 running back that you probably hoped for and sure thought you had after week 1 of the season against the Bills, which, like you said, the Bills have been run on this year, not just by Derrick Henry.
Yeah, well, it's concerning. So last year, there was a similar thing that happened where the Ravens defense was kind of bad to start the year, but the offense masked that, and the defense figured it out. Obviously, they lose Justin Madubuike. They also have their star safety who's out for an undisclosed period of time right now. The Ravens defense doesn't look like it's getting better.
No.
And I do not have this number in front of me, but I know it's insane. I guarantee you in a lot of those really good fantasy point scoring outcomes for Derrick Henry last year, it came in the fourth quarter when they were up and they were just running the ball, and he gets that one run where he can do the Derrick Henry thing and take off for 80 yards.
Yeah.
That happened repeatedly last year.
And that's always been his superpower too. And like, this is a short-term issue, hopefully, but like, what does the game script look like just as a whole? And then in the fourth quarter, especially if Lamar's not there the next couple of weeks, which it seems like that is a pretty for sure thing. He's not going to be there.
Yeah, and I don't like to be the bad vibes guy, but like the Lamar camp putting out a different timeline than what the reporters were getting told from the team. And that seems not good. There was a lot of, it's Twitter. There was a lot of Twitter pointing out like he wasn't even icing his hamstring when he came out of the Chiefs game, and people thinking that he quit on it. But the vibes in Baltimore are pretty low. Probably the worst I've seen of a Harbaugh coach team in the last 10 years. And you put that all together, you have Derrick Henry. I don't want to call it throwing a fit, but when he fumbled the ball last week, he did go to the bench, and he did.
He was inconsolable.
Yes, he was at a very irate moment. And you know what? If Derrick Henry's mad, I'm not going to console that one for sure. But you put that all together, and the negative game scripts that defense is going to keep putting them in. Like, there is no help on the way on the defensive end, and they just lost their biggest help on the offensive end. That it's hard to visualize how this gets better, except when they play some teams that the Ravens can pick on.
Do you know who Lamar Jackson's agent is?
Is it Drew Rosenhaus?
It's himself. He's his own agent. Just gonna leave that one out there. Talking about bad vibes with him. Okay.
I forgot because that was the whole Atlanta. Yeah.
Your last one.
We go from bad vibes to all-time down vibes, and I do have a person I would like to put all these vibes on. But we go down to Jacksonville. So if I told you the Jacksonville Jaguars were 3-1, you'd be feeling pretty good about some of the weapons on that team.
I would.
And unfortunately, two of what I would consider the bigger fantasy weapons on the team are not doing so hot. Those being Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. We'll start with Brian Thomas Jr., who is fourth on the team in receiving yards, first on the team in targets, and first on the team in drops. It's not great. If you look at Brian Thomas just from a pure fantasy point scoring perspective, it's been less than good for what you paid for a back end of the first round pick. His highest scoring output was week 1, where he scored 8 points. The reason he scored 8 points is because he caught no balls, and then he took an end around for a touchdown. Since then, he hasn't gone over 7 points. He's consistently been the leadoff for morning talk shows, which include What Is Wrong with Brian Thomas Jr. Some people think his wrist is wrong. I think I know the culprit in all of this. His name is their passing game coordinator, and his name is Shane Waldron. And he's done this repeatedly to players I care about, including but not limited to Jackson Smith-Jigba and Rome Odunze. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, The team is 3-1. Things aren't changing in Jacksonville anytime soon. And I like this is one of the hardest things to figure out. So like Chris Godwin, just an example, comes out and gets 10 targets and 3 catches. It's pretty easy to write that off. It's his first week back from injury. Brian Thomas Jr. has been one of the worst players to target on a per drop rate in the NFL and is supposed to be the focal point of this offense. And I don't know what gets better there because offensively, they are doing a lot of really creative things that are working for them. Unfortunately, they're working for Parker Washington and Britton Strange, which...
Does Brian Thomas Jr. have the yips over the middle? Like, legitimate question, because he was pulling up short multiple times earlier in the season. And then week 4, did he have a target over the middle of the field, Dalton, in week 4? It may have been one. It was maybe all on the sideline.
Well, and then we just hop on down to his cohort, who I know that some people had low fantasy expectations for him, but you and I were pretty high on Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I could do a whole podcast on the snap count situation happening with Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Why you would take a guy. Again, it's early. You know, I'm willing to wait it out, as frustrating as it is for fantasy. I'm willing to wait it out before I kill them, because like people did this with Jahmyr Gibbs, and then it turned out, like they unleashed him. It, like they had a plan. It was fine. It just doesn't feel like they have a great plan with Travis Hunter right now. Why would you take a guy 2 overall and then turn him into a part-time player on both sides of the ball? Doesn't really seem like it's to your advantage to do that. But again, we'll see where we're at in a month with that before I really get pissed off about it.
No, and the thing is, he's not making an impact on either side of the ball. And
when he has chances offensively, he's just not getting many. He made best catch of any Jag of the season probably last week over the middle on that deep post in their own territory. I'm sure you saw a clip of him going around of him just burying a guy run blocking, which it makes sense. That guy that plays cornerback, pretty good run blocker. So like, hey, good for Travis Etienne, I guess.
Well, if I were to ask you at the start of the season, who would average more points on a points per game basis? Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, or Bishal Tootin? If you tell me Bishal Tootin, you're insane.
Especially with the context of, by the way, Travis Etienne's having a top 10 start to the season.
Yes, but Bishal Tootin is averaging more points than them. In fact, if you combine Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr., they're averaging, or in total, they have 11 more fantasy points than Bishal Tootin. It's absurd. And that's with both sides of the ball having 1 touchdown. Bishal Tootin has 1 touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. has 1 touchdown.
Can I give you a little copium? Just a little?
If there is.
Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. and Mac Jones. That's a problem. And Trevor Lawrence just don't have that chemistry yet. They're just not on the same page on a lot of these routes where they're option routes, and the quarterback thinks you're going here based on how you're being played, and the receiver ends up going a different way because he's reading it differently. You know, I'm not going to say that, hey, Brian Thomas Jr. needs Mac Jones to be his quarterback to be good. What I will say is maybe let's give it a little bit more time. Maybe there's just some chemistry that needs to be built between quarterback and receiver here. What do you say to that?
You know who was in the elite quarterback wide receiver room of the Los Angeles Rams the year of the Triple Crown?
Who's that?
Liam Cohen. So you go sit Brian Thomas Jr.'s ass down and you say you're going to breakfast every morning with Trevor Lawrence, and you're sitting in that little cafe, and you two are going to talk about whatever under the sun until you figure this out. And that, if that happens, I'll feel a lot better. If we get some beat reports that they're going to Denny's before practice every morning, I'm happy. But until that happens, I'm concerned.
Denny's, like, I'd be a little happier if they chose someplace better than Denny's. If it's Denny's, I'm going to, I think, have more questions than answers coming out of that.
Denny's tells me that it's about being together and not about the experience you're going to have. Waffle House tells me that there's a real rift in that room and they're going to get in a fight. And IHOP tells me that they just don't have taste.
Okay. Oh, God. Yeah, it's not good in Jacksonville right now. the Travis Hunter call is one that I'm particularly mad about right now. But again, we'll come back to it later. Hopefully things for Brian Thomas Jr. look up. If you had to guess going forward, which guy do you think is more likely to bounce back closest to their pre-draft price? AJ Brown or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me. I was like, well, Travis Hunter technically is at his redraft price.
Yeah.
I think Travis Hunter. I think there have been more.
No. Brian Thomas Jr. or
Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay.
I think there have just been more glimpses of like almost being there. There is like, and this is a theory. Week 1, when Brian Thomas Jr. scored the touchdown, or no, early in week 1, he caught a pass that ended up being out of bounds, and he spiked the ball into the wall, and the ball bounces back, and on video,
the running theory is he hurt his wrist there, right?
That's the running theory. All I know is that I will continue to say I think Liam Cohen's offense takes time. The Athletic talked about it pretty well, where they were like, Trevor Lawrence isn't used to turning his back to defenses as frequently as Liam Cohen's play action asks, and that's just a learning thing for him, and that might be some of the timing being off with him, but it is horrendous the number of times that I've watched Brian Thomas let off on a ball that I believe is easily catchable, including in the Cincinnati game in the end zone twice.
Yeah. I'm going to go AJ Brown. Just like we have a much longer track record of AJ Brown than we do Brian Thomas Jr., and we have a track record of AJ Brown with this quarterback, with all the, like he's the safer bet, probably in that regard. But yeah, neither one feels good right now. Okay. We'll end this with a feel-good story, especially for us. But, I think if people can get past their NFL fandom for a minute and just like, we're here for fantasy football, right? Like that's what we're all here for at the end of the day. People have got to be happy with the Chiefs looking like they may be getting back on track, because like Brock Bowers went from a limited practice to a DNP while we're recording. So like, we're just losing guys by the minute. It feels like
I don't know if you've seen this. They're calling him Brace Bowers.
Yeah. I mean, he's out there like limping around with a brace. It's not pretty. We need all the guys we can get for fantasy football. The Chiefs may be finally giving us some guys that we can comfortably use again. We'll see. So right now, you pointed this out to me. Had to double check it myself. Would never have thought it was true based on just conversation around this player, especially from fantasy circles. Patrick Mahomes is actually the quarterback 3 in fantasy this year, and he's just like not really being talked about that way. Most ranks are kind of reflecting a more positive feel with the Chiefs and Mahomes this week. There are some that are still not. There are some that have been the teens. I think that's crazy. I think those people would say, it was just 1 week. I am to see a lot more than that against a banged up Ravens defense. What if I told you, Dalton, it was not just 1 week, actually? So Mahomes for the season, mind you, where he's had Xavier Worthy for 1 game, Rashee Rice for 0 games. He has the highest EPA per attempt in the league on non-first read throws. Didn't have, like I said, his guys the first 3 weeks. Still doesn't have Rashee Rice, who I still think is the Chiefs' best receiver. I guess we'll see what Worthy does the rest of the way. From Buffalo on last year, so like week 10 on, including the playoffs, and I picked that spot specifically. If you go look at Xavier Worthy's game log, that's a clear line of up and down to consistent producer. Since we got that emergence from Xavier Worthy, Mahomes weeks 10 through 17 was QB7. They didn't play him in week 18 last season. And then you look at the playoffs. Obviously, we don't have the fantasy finish numbers because it's the playoffs, but he scored 12 points against Houston in what was a low-scoring game where they could not block the Houston Texans offensive line, 30 points against the Buffalo Bills, and 20.5 in a horrendous Super Bowl game, but still 20.5. So far this year, 26, 23, 27 fantasy point games out of him. He had the Giants game that was ugly with 13 fantasy points. And man, Xavier Worthy really opened things up for the Chiefs offense. And number 1, looks like a guy that is a must start until proven otherwise. And number 2 is going to help this offense move up and down the field more consistently, which they already are. They're already like top 5 in first downs and like yards per drive. I think they're 6th or 7th, something like that. He's going to open things up for Kelce, which you're talking about taking away Drake May's turnovers. Travis Kelce is, I think, tight end 13 right now. If he catches one of the 2 touchdowns he could have had, he's tight end 7. If he catches both, which again, these are plays that he should have made and he didn't. It's nobody's fault but him on both of these. But if he makes both those plays, which one of them was a tipped interception that he literally just like set up in the air. The other one, he just stopped on a crossing route because he read the coverage wrong and Mahomes threw where he should have been. He would have walked in for a touchdown. He makes both those plays. He's tight end 1 on the year, Dalton. And I'm not saying you're getting tight end 1 Travis Kelce going forward. It's just better than it looks on paper, probably for Kelce. And he's going to have a lot more room to operate with Worthy and then eventually Rice. Like, he is not even getting huge volume. I don't think the volume is going to substantially get worse when those guys are back. He's best on the Chiefs in yards after the catch, which is not saying a lot. He's 4th among tight ends in yards after the catch. And then, like, you just look at the Chiefs passing game, that the deep ball is back. Like, Mahomes talked about a couple weeks ago, he feels more calm in the pocket, and that's always been his biggest issue, is happy feet in the pocket. He is trusting the offensive line for the most part to block for him and to load up and throw those passes. And Tyquan Thornton has caught a handful. I know it was only 1 for 4 to Xavier Worthy the other day on deep shots, but 1 for 4 is still more than was happening a lot of games last year. And I would suspect it's probably going to continue to improve because the deep ball has been better this year. Through 3 games, I don't have the data for 4, but through 3 games, Mahomes on 20-plus yard pass attempts was tied for 4th in attempts with 15 and 11th in completions. Like, you couple that with Rashee Rice coming back, and you're cooking with gas with this passing offense. You're starting Mahomes, you're starting Rice, you're starting Worthy, and tight ends of Wasteland, you're starting Travis Kelce. Just one more bold call before we get out of here. I know you'll like this. I think Brashard Smith is going to be this team's RB1 at some point this year. We're slowly getting the increased role, and we're not just getting the increased role. Andy Reid is very intentionally talking about it multiple times, which is, I mean, that's rare. That is not something that we hear. And that talk matched what happened last week. We'll see going forward, but he is definitely the most explosive running back in the room. Broke 3 tackles on 1 play the other day. That may be more than Pacheco and Kareem Hunt have broken all season this year combined. Like, I'm not even kidding. That might be about at or more than those guys. I mean, he led the Chiefs in running back targets. Even if he never wins the job, like, everybody remembers the Jerick McKinnon run down the stretch a couple years ago. Not saying that's happening, but, like, if you're looking for a guy to add, stash Brashard Smith, be early to this party. Okay, those are my overarching Chiefs thoughts, Dalton. What do you think?
Well, I think we should start this off with, among Juju Smith-Schuster, A.J. Brown, Lad McConkey, and we'll just throw T. Higgins in there for good measure.
That's just rude.
Who has scored the most points?
You said Juju, A.J. Brown, Lad McConkey, T. Higgins. Well, I know it's not T. Higgins, and I know it's not Lad McConkey. I'm almost positive. I'm going to say it's A.J. Brown 1, T. Higgins, or A.J. Brown 1, Juju Smith-Schuster 2.
Juju Smith-Schuster has the most points.
Man, I thought it might be a trap.
I don't know how this works. It might be Ty goes to the runner. They're both at 21.1, but Juju is ranked 1 ahead in the data here.
I think it's because they're punishing A.J. Brown for sucking and rewarding Juju for not being completely washed like we all thought.
But I think that's obviously I didn't even mention it. Tyquan Thornton is wide receiver 20 right now. I don't expect that to continue with Worthy being back, but he is a very good ancillary piece. I mean, all in all, the Chiefs offense is not really getting its flowers right now. One, like, they were obviously 0-2, and then they beat up a bad Giants team. And during the game, the excuses were already flowing for the Ravens, and that the Ravens were actually not good, and it's their defense's fault. But regardless, and in spite of those 2 things, the first 2 defenses they play the Los Angeles Chargers. They almost win that game. They had the opportunity to win that game if it wasn't for a Kelce interception. And then they play the Eagles. same story. They have the opportunity to win the game. They don't win the game.
Yeah, and I think we saw proof as to how much losing Worthy on the third play of the game really just threw them completely off of whatever they were trying to do in that Chargers game.
Yeah, you have a rookie left tackle who's getting better every week in Josh Simmons. In my opinion, it just looks to me like they're easing Brashard Smith into like a real like 40-50% every down player. He's gotten some jet sweep touch passes now. He's gotten some of those outside look rollouts that they love to run on 4th and 1 as the Chiefs offense. And those are big trust plays.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this offense is continuing to trend upwards, and the Rashee Rice factor is growing, and like there's real hope on the horizon for this Chiefs team. People forget going into the week he got injured last year against the Chargers, he was second in the NFL in yards. And was off to an electric start and provides.
It's a small sample size, but his reception perception last year, I think, was the best against zone coverage that Harmon had ever charted if it was a full season score. Now, will he do that for a full year? Probably not. But when you mix what Worthy does and Tyquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown, and then what Rice and Kelsey can do, you see a passing game that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part, is that the Chiefs have already proven they have field stretchers, and Rice was so good in the short and intermediate and breaking tackles that if he comes back and can do that, this team's going to have a lot of options every week in how to play football. And when you give Mahomes a lot of options, that's where things get scary. So this isn't even his final form.
Yeah, and the deep ball is great, but you know, one thing that having Worthy back, I think, helped in week 4, and then getting Rice back will help even more, is the Chiefs, like the short passing game, and then turning that into some yak, like even like 6-7 yards, just has not existed without those guys. And for a team that can't really run the ball, that has always been the Andy Reid extension of the run game. So just that will help them keep more and more drives alive as we move on. All right, Dalton, anything else to add before we jump out of here?
No, I think we're good. We're off to Thursday Night Football.
Get to go watch Christian McCaffrey get 35 touches, according to Dan Olvosky. That is going to do it for episode 181 of the Half Point Per Podcast. Give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Half Point Per Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube at Half Point Per Podcast on there. That's the biggest thing you can do to help the show at this point. The link to all of those things is in the show notes. As always, the show's available anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple. Leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back to talk to you about whatever happens in this crazy week 5.